Hello everyone. And yeah, so sorry I didn't get around to doing the stream yesterday. For anyone who was watching or waiting for me to update the alts, I ended up having to spend 3 hours trying to fix the windscreen wipers on my car, and then it was a friend's birthday, so I had to go for lunch, which ended up into a very long boozy lunch, and yeah, I got back quite drunk quite late, so hence my voice is a bit messy this morning. I hope I'm not getting sick or anything because I'm feeling a bit ropey in the throat. But yeah, so alts I had requested yesterday, plus I was going to look at, so for anyone who's not in my premium group, we had January 19th, so this is a couple of days ago, but yesterday MNT and PYTH hit demand and supply respectively, so demand being a long entry, supply being a short entry, potential long and short. SC short entry, silly, I think it hit couples, so I think it just ploughed through an initial early zone. So if they hit early when Bitcoin's dropping, then obviously they're less likely to work. So silly went into the zone and then into a lower zone. GROK's hit a zone, kind of a lower time frame one there, a 12-hour one. And then RAD BTT with the last two. Sol, I had if you followed one of my last videos, I had a trend line entry, but it's, yeah, for some reason the trend lines get a bit funny. Sometimes this was nowhere near the trend line, so I have no idea why that triggered, but I've deleted it, and it should have been deleted anyway because it had already run previously. So yeah, I'm going to run through these alerts, and just trying to think of the easiest way to go through the list. Should have set up the list before, that would have been easier really, wouldn't it? Smart me. Let me have a look. If I actually go to my studio, that's probably going to be easier. I hope you can't hear the music this time. I'm deliberately not supposed to be letting you hear the music, but I'm hoping I'm playing music, but it shouldn't be coming through. So if anyone's watching, let me know if it is coming through and shouldn't be. Open my... Okay, right, so first MNT. So this one, yeah, it was an early hit on yesterday in the day and has come quite deep into the zone. There was a bit of a thrown off a cliff situation there, so I don't know if something happened with MNT. There's a 3-month down here, the same structure that I've talked about a lot previously. There's also 6 months. Again, slightly dodgy in these cases because it's the first candle, so it may not legitimately be a decent zone. So I originally have had an alert set down here on a 2-month demand lower, and then obviously put some more aggressive ones in, assuming the market isn't just overall turning around. So we had a weekly in here which got tested, went up, tested again, went up again. Not strong zones again, because we're again on so many of these alts are at the point of just ranging and deciding whether we're going to hold zones or not. So we've had a decent move up after the second test of this lower demand, but this candle hasn't made a new high over this enormous wick. So I can put an entry here on this weekly, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a very good entry. So we can see on the lower time frame it very much got thrown off a cliff, and there wasn't really any point, I think. I don't think this was a particular point that Bitcoin was dumping for it to have done that, and you can see from the candles it's horrible and probably low. Oh well, on CoinEx as well. So let me have a look at what exchanges this was actually on. Yeah, so it's on some of the smaller. It's not on Binance or anything like that. It's on Bybit, and it's on Bybit perpetual. Doesn't even appear to be on XC perpetual. Yeah, so Bybit and Bluefin, whatever that is. So yeah, it's kind of going to be a lower volume one and therefore more likely to be aggressively unpleasant. So yeah, it was a weak demand. It's gone deeper into the demand and has now hit this daily down the bottom of it. Did get a decent move for a scalp, didn't come up into where I then subsequently put a short entry. So if you're on Bybit, you can potentially look at this for a for the possible long after that drop. Just be a little bit wary of that one because it did come down quite hard, and a couple of hours it looks like it might make a 12-hour supply as well, and it's got an 8-hour in there already, so it's not ready to move yet, but you can keep an eye on that on lower time frames to see if it does hold here, and then just be conscious there's daily supply up here that could be certainly a take profit, but potentially a short entry. And then it's all very wicky around here, so while I could move another more solid alert up to the top of the 3 months, I think I'll just leave it on that lower one for the moment. If I see the market start to hold a bit better, I might start revising some of these lower ones that are more conservative and bring them higher. Just check my chat isn't... Hopefully someone's listening and knows that, yeah, sorry, you're able to hear me. So, okay, so that's MNT. I'll just do briefly on some of these alerts because, you know, they're already charted as being on demand. So, next we had the PYTH short. So again, that's just in play now. And I think I did share that yesterday as it had hit. So given a nice initial reaction off there, if anyone took that, it was a weekly supply short. These ones can be hit and miss actually. Again, we've got no demand to say this is a strong weekly supply. So yeah, I might have gone through something on a lower time frame down here, judging by my orange line. I guess it has, but I did see one in this style fail recently. So, or at least it went higher into it. I couldn't remember which one to go and check if it actually broke through or not, but this one at least has given a decent initial reaction. I did have, there is now a 3-day demand in the middle and a daily more aggressive. So if again you're in this, keep an eye here for it potentially trying again. So when all these alerts hit, just keep an eye on, I can see lots of red coming through on Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's doing some very interesting things. There's very positive spot CBD, so people are really buying this and trying to push the price up, but perps are really pushing it down. So quite volatile for a Monday morning. Yeah, so anyone who trades any of these alerts, you know, when you're looking, you know, you've got that potential initial reaction you're going to get there. Sometimes they'll push higher inside, so you have to look at the lower time frames to get potentially an initial reaction. But then the second step of this is it going to form a downtrend? And on the very high time frame ones like these, obviously it can take significant time to form said downtrend. So you can see here, if you'd taken a short, like at this stage I was still looking for longs because there was no price action and the market was still really bullish until it broke through. But you're kind of looking for, so like let's say you've taken this rejection on 8-hour, 12-hour supply here, you're looking for it to break demand, or it's potentially going to come back higher in the zone. So in this case, you know, you're looking where is your nearest demand. It's a daily, there's a 3-day, quite high time frames. You've now got a 4-hour supply above. So your first entry is your risky entry, obviously on the first hit, because it's still you're fighting against an uptrend. Then you're looking at where's your nearest demand. Once it's broken a demand, so it has broken a 4-hour here and flipped it. Excuse me. Very aggressive alarms. So yeah, you're likely to get some sort of bounce here, and then it's going to come up and retest. So your second risky entry still is there because we're still in an uptrend at this point. So it could still go higher in the zone and or break through the zone. But if you've got a supply, that's a potential short. It is preferable if it's broken demand before testing that supply. but it doesn't. You don't always get what you want to get. So I need to close my shutters. I'm going blind. The sun is right in my face. So yeah, so it's preferable to take a short off here if it's broken demand first, but that doesn't mean it's not going to work, so that's a possibility, or it's a possibility that it's going to go higher and you're going to have to wait for longer. And a lot of that just depends on what state the market's in. You know, if the market's overall really bullish, then obviously it's much more likely to fail. If the market's just in an indecisive mood, then you might just get some moving around in here, similar to this, while it decides whether it's going to reject or not. And also at this point in time, there is no reason you can't take longs from here. So I have various rules, like I wouldn't, given we're coming off a higher time frame supply than we've got demand below, I wouldn't be looking for a long in here, personally. If this was of the same and the market was overall bullish, then sure. But until I see the hit on this, I'd rather wait. And, you know, then if it does start, if we get a hit here, it does reject there, and it holds here, and blah, 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 then you might look for that bigger mover later. But for me, I won't put such an aggressive one. This is a decent move up off the lows, and ideally, if here was support, then I'd be more inclined to look at demand nearer the start of the up move. So hence my alert down here. Well, this would have been, I would place this around here, and annoyingly the wick missed it. But and again, it's not preferable for me now. It's gone up and hit supply to even look at a long there, because, you know, at the moment and the bigger picture, it's a lower high. But obviously you've got various options, like at the sorry, I'm still going blind. At this point, you know, we've made a high, made a low, made a new high, presuming this is the high, could make a lower low. One option, could make a higher low, triangle, break out. Could just make a higher high, and, you know, you don't have enough structure, historical structure, to really make a judgment call on any of those at this point, so it's just scalps from zone to zone. So that would be the initial short. So anyway, you can watch this, watch the strength of the bounce here. Does it go through this zone? You know, if you're a scalper, you can potentially look for a long somewhere in this zone. And, you know, again on that, you know, you just put a fib on it. Potentially look around that 3-day mark, around the 3343, if you want to scalp in there, is an option. Or be more conservative like me and wait until it's lower and see is that any sort of fib. So it's just above the 61 if we use the wick, but if we use, it's around the 61, so it's a reasonable area to start looking for a possible long, whether it's a scalp or a swing trade, once it comes down a bit lower. So that's PYTH. And next on the list, SC. Okay, so there's another interesting one actually. So we've got a huge move on SC. Another annoying situation where it looks like it's just missed my alert on the wick of that. It's come up into a 3-month supply. It's a bit of a, you can see it's got a bit of chop in there. It's got a wick just inside there, so it has tested it on a local, immediate retest. So you've got an immediate retest and then you have a second retest. Below we also put in, we have got a 3-month demand down there. Is that a 6-month? No, just a 3-month demand down the bottom. And it's just running through a monthly supply here, so it's obviously got some strength on this. Just update some of the other levels lower while we're here. So there's some strength on this. So when you've got a big move like this coming up, there's no need, absolutely no need to FOMO short. And some of the low volume stuff you will find will just drop. What happened there? I don't know why my lines have suddenly got super thick. So it's possible it will just drop, but, you know, again, you generally have some time to wait while this decides whether it's going to react from the zone, whether it's going to react near the bottom of the zone at the actual level and where the alert is. And just because the cross is there doesn't mean that you're taking the entry immediately there, unless you're a swing trader and want to have your stop all the way up here like a crazy person. So we've now got a 3-week and a 2-week demand below. We've got this missed weekly. So again, that might not be aggressive enough if this does come down. But the ones when you have significant drops, to pick which demand is gonna get picked up below can be a little bit harder. And you can see over here that it's got an immediate one and it's bounced off that, hasn't made a higher high, has bounced off the next one down, but then has come through and swing failed it. Yeah, it's taken significant time to come down to these lower ones and then has ended up not holding any of them anyway. So it's hard to know whether you want to be aggressive and use the immediate demands or whether to wait for the lower zones. And again, a lot of it's dependent on what the market's doing. And that's why I just put alerts and see what happens when it actually gets to them. See if the market's in the right place and whether you should swing or scalp the entry. So it did also make a weekly there. It didn't quite touch that. But yeah, anyway, I'll leave this for a while because again, something like this, I want to see how aggressively it came down. If you want to set alerts on this, there's no reason you shouldn't set on this 2-week here around the 70 mark, because again, it could hold there and push higher. And given that it's gone virtually through this monthly supply. As far as the immediate short entry goes, so then what I would be looking for in the is what are the lower time frame zones inside? Are we likely to get a wick into a higher part of the zone? Like I say, you've got plenty of time on something like this, or for the most part you have. Choose how you trade, but yeah, it's possible that we're going to go out and take out this monthly entirely up into this 2-week supply up here, and also possible that it's going to be one of the crazy crypto ones that just keeps going. You just never know. And for those, then it can be quite worth looking at the at the BTC pair to see if that's also, if it's got the history, if that's also at a supply, and that can be quite a useful lead indicator or secondary tool to see if you think it's ready to come down. Maybe I'll just demonstrate that quickly and see what we have on SC BTC. Don't have it on Binance, that's interesting. Let's just have a look on CoinEx if it's going to have enough. Yeah, so it's not very clean. So this may not be that high probability. It is in a monthly supply there, so but you can see on the BTC pair, for example, that at least to get to monthly supply, it's quite wicky and messy, but it's a little bit higher to get to monthly supply. So again, that means you shouldn't necessarily FOMO straight into a short on the US dollar pair. It's going to undo into that. But yeah, so just keep an eye on this, see what it gives you on the lower time frames. Obviously it's closed very strong. Again, dropping down, seeing what more local zones we have. You know, when you've got this volatility, like I said, and some of my group, will actually counter trade these. Because a lot of crypto traders will see this sort of big up move and then they want to jump in later. So you do tend to get that volatility around the top, which again means you can trade both directions. For me, I wouldn't be longing here because that's just not the way I trade. But I have had members in my group successfully, scalp on the 15-minute or hourly just in whatever volatility you've got around the highs for a while you see if it's going to come down or not. But you've got to monitor those quite closely. So it's not something I tend to do, mainly because I'm far too busy. So there's a lot of chop here and there is a lot of potential support, but there's not anywhere that I would actually look for a local long personally. People who trade moving averages, you can look for confluence with that. But what's Bitcoin doing? Yeah, this is too choppy for me. I'd rather have a clean, obvious demand if I was going to look for a long on this. But anyway, yeah, you can start looking for shorts on this. So if you're going to get, just if you're learning, just keep an eye on how previous tops look. A lot you can see here, for example, you could have thought that was a top, but then it's got this local demand. So again, you're looking at where's the most recent demand, where's it likely to hold, is it going to then push for another wave up? It does seem to have it likes to do this consolidation, take out the high and then drop, consolidation, take out the high, dropped a little bit, consolidation, take out the high, and then again drops, but not too much. But this is still while it's uptrending. You tend to see a bit more volatility in that when it's going to make a sort of final top. You'll see more spikiness. And you can see you've got those spikes here coming off the monthly supply, but it's just picked up that weekly level and moved higher again. So very early days on that, but keep an eye on SC for potential shorts. Next on our list is silly. Did I have that already? Did not already have that on my layout. Too many things on my list. Silly. No, that's SFP. Oh, that's kind of, let me just have a quick look at SFP. Okay, that's bigger picture. Interesting, just because I noticed the 6 month level and then this sort of rejection off the 6 month level. So keep an eye on this one for shorts. I'll look at the bigger picture, but yeah. When I say a lot with these alts, it just really depends on the structure they're in. And I made a comment previously that that maybe these are ones that are going to die forever. The ones that are still under major supply and are rejecting them now. You've got a real mixture. Like some of them are under these supplies and some of them have broken through them. And I have speculated it could be like the bear market 2018, where some of these that are under the major supplies may die forever. Particularly ones that haven't. I mean, in this case, it has actually made a 3 month demand down here. But particularly if it hasn't made a 3 month or demand, like this has come through obviously some monthly supplies on the lower time frames. Actually, no, it hasn't. So while it still looks like an up move, it's still in the bigger downtrend. It's trying to hold this monthly, trying to hold a flip of that level, but still fairly high risk for macro longs on this. It's still in a downtrend, and just because you've had, in this case, June 22, 2 years of up move with some wicks and messiness, that doesn't mean it's going to break supply and go up from here, because it's still in the downtrend even with that significant move up. Anyway, I digress. Silly. Starting to look a little bit more ropey here. I'm just going to put this monthly level in just to see if that's where we may have got a rejection on the lower time frame. So I think I did do this in my stream the other day, and I said there was a bit of a risk here that we had as this is possible weekly supply, but I think it didn't show up on the other exchange I looked at. Yeah, so on CoinX you don't see that weekly, but it's because it's right at the beginning of PA, so it made it a little bit risky for looking for longs, but worth considering if we were going to get a stronger market. So, and again, 2 day supply is rejecting here. It's not the strongest 2 day supply, so I was hoping we would get a move up to the 12-hour up there, but obviously Bitcoin's now come down and has got some 2 decent entries. One off the low, very clean, and another re-entry on a 12-hour demand here, and then it has made this sort of local 12-hour here, and I probably should have removed that alert because this wick came too close to it. And then obviously the whole market's been going down for the last day, so, or for the last 12 to 24 hours. So now we're down in this daily. So again, still worth watching this, but I don't like really how those candles are growing in size, the red candles. But I was having hope of how this looked when it was up here because it was looking strong when the rest of the market wasn't, and I was hoping for some continuation, but we may or may not get that. I may have to do an interlude. I'm expecting a delivery, so I may have to run off and answer the door at some point. So yeah, now it's got 12-hour supply in there, so it's got a bit more to get back through if it does bounce here. And it's just going to be dependent on whether Bitcoin's going to hold or whether Bitcoin's planning on making lower lows this morning. It has just taken out the lows here, so watch in case it's just a swing fails these lows here. and if it can hold, if it's starts to turn around, but so far not giving us much on the lower time frames other than the possibility of a stop hunt of that level. But keep an eye on that. It would be a nice tight stop entry if it does get it. Be conscious that we've got 8 hours supply here and 12 hours supply above that, so got a few things to get back through. But something worth watching. GROK is the next one on the list. So again, yeah, this was a lower, okay, so and this was one of those early ones that looked like it might move, but then didn't. Haven't updated this for a while. So again, some of my alerts can just be old. And if I'd updated it sooner, maybe I would have not had the entry where I had the entry. So now, for example, we have 3 weeks supply. So I'd be much less inclined to long this, although there's no reason you're not going to get long up to this zone. But we've got a 3 week supply there, nothing on the 2 week. Weekly, so we've got a weekly supply in here which I've had alerted, and we've got a daily right at the top there that I also had alerted, but I'm going to delete that alert because it's too far away now, and even this one is potentially too far away. The 3 week is a bit of a gap between the 3 weeks, so it hasn't got a decent retest. Hold on, just see. So like I've said before, these are becoming harder because it's starting to do sort of early rejections on 5-day and 4-day zones. So there's a 5-day zone there that it's just wicked off. And it's also got a couple of 4 days more locally. So there is no reason why these are going to get back up to the zones that I look for entries from. So again, I should reiterate that. People who follow me know that. Just because I have an entry there doesn't mean you should long up to there. I'm actually going to move, so I'm going to move this one down to here. I'm going to, like, sometimes you just have to preempt what they might do. So this is a kind of a sort of slightly choppy area, but it is a 3 week supply. So if you want, you can send an alert on this 3 week. Sometimes I like to preempt the fact that, you know, the market can just be a bit of an arsehole and could potentially, but here it's difficult because there's a 3-day that hasn't been tested. There's a weekly that's been tested on a lower time frame as far as a level perspective, but hasn't been tested on the weekly. And there's a 3-day up here that hasn't been tested and a daily at the top, so that any of these are possible short entries. Doesn't mean it's going to get to any of them, but again, which ones should you use? So you can short here if you want, but then you're not shorting in the premium of the range, if that's your range and if this is the bottom. So let's go down to lower time frames, and then you get this sort of chop, and you know, it's crypto, so the low volume can just mean it throws a wick through it. So I did have a long entry here on 2-day demand, which just, you know, hung out here in a small range and didn't do much. And that's why I want to put an entry there, because again, I quite often find that, you know, this is the supply that broke the support that I wanted to long from. Well, in fact, well, I mean, this is at the same zone. This is the supply that actually broke that zone. So I tend to like to look at where the zone is flipped. What's the supply that's broken my zone? And here it's slightly debatable. It could be those guys and it could be those guys, or anywhere up here. But that to me would be the one that I would look at in the first instance, because they're the ones that broke the 3-day, then 1 week supply. Check I'm in the right, yeah, in the right webhook. Yeah, so that would be the first entry I'd look for, even though we've got a 3 week below that. From a long perspective, I'm going to add a new entry down here. So when I have an entry hit, I'll then tend to add the next one down, just in case that one doesn't work, because also because I may or may not trade the ones as they come in myself. They're sort of partly for me and they're partly for other people. So I look at ones that I A, have time for, and B, are higher probability than others. So this is a 12-hour, it's not necessarily the highest probability. Even this, so Litecoin's having a bit of a drop. But again, yeah, so hit 12-hour demand, it's come down fairly heavily. Again, needs a little bit more time. I don't mind this one though. This is something that's worth keeping an eye on from a long perspective. You know, it's coming down pretty slowly and it's come into the start of a significant up move. So assuming Bitcoin doesn't fall off a cliff, there might be some hope for this. Keep an eye on that one. GROK done. RAD. Oh. Quick look at RAD. So this has come in with, what are we looking at? I guess a 2-week, no, 1-day demand. But it's a chart that I haven't updated for a while, or hasn't saved, which also happens to me at times. Incredibly irritating when you've done so much work and then only to find that for whatever reason TradingView decides not to save it. So we do have a 3-month level here. It's not ideal because I've only closed over it very, very slightly. Monthly, not giving me much, so 3 weeks, had a test on it down there. Then, okay, so yeah, so the dashed line means the 2-week hasn't confirmed yet, but it is an entry on a weekly basis. So then we've had a weekly down here that's got tested repeatedly, and then it's come up. So this is a decent. This level, in fact, is probably a better level. 1.7 is probably a better level for a long entry. But again, this is kind of interesting. Downside of this again is the wicks to the upside, because you just don't know if it's just, is that like one person pushing that up there, or is that really legitimate buying, because it's obviously a low liquidity. So it was a daily when I set the alert, but there's now a 3-day in there, and there's a 2-day just below. But again, like I think one of the other early examples I had, this isn't a strong. It's stronger actually than the previous example, because the wick has gone higher, and on the daily it looks a lot better. Don't love the wicks pushing it down, but I also like the fact this doesn't have much supply. I think that's why I set this alert, because we have a bit of a gap here. I wasn't sure if it was going to push up to the supply first before coming back down, but it has come back down for a retest. So this is something worth watching for sure. Got a 12-hour supply to just be slightly wary of there, but this is something that could get a decent bounce off here. The risk of it is the wick and the big sell-off that we've had, and then this local supply, but definitely keep an eye on this one on the lower time frames, because we want to see that uptrend continue. And then should this fail, I would potentially look at an entry down at 1.7 there. Interesting looking chart. Yeah, well, the weekly or even this daily is are decent zones to look for entries at. So I'll just keep an eye on this over the next day or so and see if it starts to have any build up. It is a bit choppy down here. So again, you're looking for a significant move up. And we do have that from here, obviously, and then from here again. So again, you're looking at the start of this impulse, and then also possibly the start of this impulse, which wasn't properly tested for your longs. So that, yeah, down this zone would be the next level to look if this area doesn't hold. But keep an eye on that on the lower time frames. So that's RAD, and then BTT I hadn't added yet or looked at yet at all. PYTH is coming down quite nicely if anyone was in that from before. So a BTT market's looking rather red on the giant watch list. BTT has come down hard. Okay, so this is just one of the ones that just went crazy in the market, and I haven't really looked at for a while, and obviously hasn't come back from my entry there, which is pretty quite annoying. So I think I was aggressively looking for shorts after the initial pump, because it is BTT, and I didn't necessarily think it was going to be one of the ones that continued. I do need to update this chart now though. So obviously we're very used to alts that just pump off nothing in particular, and ones that aren't hype alts like Sol and things like that, just to come straight back down again. But in this case this hasn't, because obviously this was a much stronger market. So yeah, right, so I had an initial entry, I think, on a monthly supply in here, or 2 monthly supply. So that would have been the, let's go back to lower time frame so you can see. So this would have been the first one. Actually, no, this would have hit, this is a 3 month at the bottom here, and obviously it's just come straight up through that. That would have happened fairly rapidly, or if not, you know, within the 15-minute candle or something like that. So then you've got an entry on the monthly, and we did start to get a reaction. I tried to get a couple of re-entries on that, which may or may not, I don't know. Okay, so yeah, they just both would have got run through, but was just hoping this would just retest and come back down again, but it didn't. It had a second run, but then obviously, just to be somewhat more annoying, didn't make it up to my 3 month supply preference up the top there. And yeah, something I haven't looked at for a while. So, and then obviously I've set this alert later on 2 day supply there, but it's only come up and rejected on a 5 day or a 4 day. So my pinker 5 days and 4 days. Okay, so on this now we have a weekly supply above. So I think a lot of these are going to have weekly and 3 weekly supplies, a lot of the alts now. So just be a little bit careful about what you choose to long, that they're not too close to them. And particularly if you're still thinking the whole market's bull bias. And as I commented in the previous video, I think you are within your rights to think that. Let's just have a quick look. So US dollar dominance, it's 2 things I've commented on previously as to whether you're going to be bull bias. I need to update this chart, but you know, the weekly above, so we do have some space. It still isn't even out of this lower range, but obviously it's trying to push there today. It's possible we're going to get a move up into here today, but that will be the time that you should start looking at like longer possibilities for alts, unless it plows straight through it. But after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possibly hits on supply, this is kind of looking like it's going to break through now. But obviously it relies on Bitcoin breaking down the range as well, and the candle isn't closed, so it's very early days. But and then total, again, we haven't got the breakdown as yet, so there is nothing wrong with longing alts still, but just with a slight wariness that this is starting to be, you know, again, 1, 2 hits on demand, a 3rd hit on demand, 4th hit on demand, 5th hit on demand. Are they going to start failing at that point? Then you've got another weekly below and a monthly down here. But if this starts breaking down, then obviously we're going to see much bigger drops in the alts, but not quite ready for it yet. And total too, obviously Ether, we're seeing a bigger breakdown than Bitcoin. So it's starting to come through this local weekly supply, weekly demand, sorry. But we, again, still haven't broken down the one below, still a lot more support underneath. So all the totals are, you know, in total this is starting to look a bit more ropey for coming through weekly demand on the total one as well. Having come off the monthly supply, again, not surprising. And others, the one I discovered recently, again, is still holding the structure. So there is still a possibility that this is going to triangle and continue up, but is looking a little bit ropey at this point. So we just need to see a bit more move into here to think this is going to hold. But yeah, that US dollar dominance one is always something that's worth watching. If you're looking for the bigger picture alts and whether you really should be buying for like larger moves and holding on to them. Okay, so this has weekly supply, 4 day. So it's got 5 day and 4 day in there just to make it just slightly more annoying. So it has come off, it hasn't quite tested the 4 day in there. Where do I want to put? I want to keep that. So I would like to keep that. So that, yeah, so what I'm debating now with myself, and when I go quiet, is because I'm thinking, you know, am I going to get front run on this? Is it going to come off this weekly here and front run me? And really, you don't know that for sure on any level. But we've got a lot of dailies through here. I'm looking at kind of what's already tested, whether I want to be more aggressive, thinking about what the rest of the market is doing, how strong this downtrend is. So, you know, it's come off quite heavily off the weekly here, but it's also come quite heavily off there and not gone back and tested it properly. But it has tested, you know, an SR sort of flip level there. So is it going to come back up to here? Is it going to bounce here? And this is a big zone, so again, just give this some time. I don't know whether or not this is going to hold. When you're looking at a daily, again, the lower time frames, it's now having come off, it's got a significant supply above now. So the possibility of it bouncing here is significantly lower than probably when I set the alert, which I would have set it probably around this point in time, hoping it would have come back down somewhere from here, which it hasn't. But as you can see, you know, it'll wick down in these cases. You know, it held that daily demand and went back up, didn't make a higher high, but it certainly gave you scalps off this first one. And the second one I do tend to find more reliable than the first one, you will find, because then it wants to stop hunt, wants to get more long entries before a next push. So I'm going to leave this and just keep an eye on it. You're welcome to set an alert on this weekly supply here if you want something more aggressive, and on 2-day supply. I don't know, I'm tenuous on this. I feel like I just don't love the structure on that. But then it's BTT, so is it just going to die? On the downside, like if we get a bigger drop, I want to just set an alert down here. I'm just going to set an alert at the bottom down here. One week demand, then 1 month. So if we do fall all the way back down there, I'm prepared. Haven't got to come back and re-look at the chart. Although I'm going to stream in the next few days, I'm just going to run the stream probably without sound, just so anyone who wants can watch me charting, and you can ask me questions if you want to. You have a nice long entry down here for the big move, but it's very hard to know when to hold these, you know, like unless you've got endless capital and can just buy everything that hits every demand in the hope of a possible bull market, which I wouldn't recommend. It's nice to kind of go, oh, if you'd got that, you would have made a fortune, but I certainly didn't take that. And if I had taken it, like, would I have held it through all this? I certainly don't have the patience. So 23rd of November, 5th day, you would have been holding it 2 to 3 weeks. I don't know, maybe cut slightly less than that before move up. Bitcoin's falling further now. A really nice entry in the stream yesterday on Bitcoin. Maybe $5 or $10 off. Ether didn't come back, and I want to keep an eye on this a bit because I do have a take profit down here that I've been waiting for, trying to be really patient. But I'm not sure if it's going to make a higher low here or if it's just going to drop through it. Ether didn't quite hit the short entry. I was slightly too conservative on that because we had a 2-hour at the top here and then another untested 2-hour below. And this, let me just hide everything off this so you can see slightly better. Hide some of those, but yeah, so you can see there's an untested 2-hour supply here, and then there's one here, and that's the one that held, unfortunately. But that's why I say it's a sort of judgment call as whether you think a more immediate one is going to hold over the higher one. Again, I was out yesterday, so I just placed entries at the start of the day, and that one just didn't quite get a hit, but it's now significantly dropping, which is again not overly surprising given the Ether BTC pair. And so on the long side, I think that's the alert that I've shared on the high time frame. It's my preference as if we come all the way down to the weekly down here, but given how slowly it was moving, I did move an alert slightly up. And we've got, I think, you know, this is the start of a 5-day possibly, but we've got this 12-hour in here, and even this maybe, you know, maybe it's just a bit too conservative, but let me just move my old fibs out of the way. We are down in the 61 area now, but this is just something I need to check more. I think I was sticking with more conservative, so we've still got, just be aware on this, you know, if you're looking to jump into longs on Ether, firstly the ETH BTC pair has significantly further to fall if it wants to. The CME pair is already in weekly demand, so that's good, but we've got a bit of space on the Korea pair. while we're coming into zones for looking for possible longs on Ether, we're not necessarily going to have the confluence. And you know, ETH Korea can bounce when the US dollar pair bounces at a kind of a random level and then later fall. And I have seen it do that quite a few times. ETH has also left a CME gap higher, so I do expect it's likely to go back up and fill that later in the week, not necessarily today. But yeah, just be conscious of the confluence on that. Like I said, I haven't looked properly at Bitcoin or anything really today, but like I do want Bitcoin to come out and take out those lows under the 40k mark, but I'm not sure if we've still got walls at 40k, etc, etc. So I think this didn't have a CME gap on the Bitcoin pair, which is interesting. I think because it held on for long enough until CME opened. Just cleaning up some of my charts while I'm here. Yeah, so just to see what reaction we get on this. At a little bit lower it can go, I think. At least a little bit lower, if not a lot lower, if it's really going to fall off a cliff. I also haven't looked at the indices today. Yeah, okay, so they're not, I haven't, nor have I updated them this weekend. But obviously we had sort of significant breakouts on S&P and NASDAQ again on Friday. And they can drop first thing on Monday morning, but in this case obviously they haven't, they're still holding up there. But it wouldn't surprise me if New York kicks into this and dumps it down in a not too long a period. I'm getting a bit of confluence on the other pairs that are lower, so I had an alert go on Russell. Did think Russell might go through that zone, and it has wicked right to the top of that zone, possibly swing failing, but that's worth watching the short. And then I also had on Aussie dollar alert go on this daily 2-day supply here this morning. So you can generally see some of the other countries moving earlier because obviously EU, Australia, UK are all before the US. Japan is just still crazy, so leave that alone. But yeah, anyway, some interesting things could happen this week because the indices are going a bit mad. Back to BTT, more digression. So yeah, I've got that alert all the way down there. Yeah, this is not necessarily the highest probability long, but something you can watch. What else? Next on the list, BEAMX. Okay, so these are back to the requests now. So I did share all the alerts that went earlier on the weekend. So like MAV hadn't quite hit, and you can see that's just come off now. These are the new ones. So we had, I think, CT and NTRN, and it's XNA is on there. Possibilities for longs. XNA was kind of an interesting one actually. It's not dissimilar to GROK. Like if you look at the perps charts, this looks like a new coin, but does actually have history on previous charts. Can hold or could not hold. Like it depends. Like you don't always see a reaction on the history when the history isn't showing on current charts, but like I say, just something though. So this has had an initial reaction off that daily demand. This is a fairly similar chart actually to BTT. And it's coming back for a retest, so let's just see if this holds the retest, and then you can potentially get a bigger move up on that. What else? Okay, so BEAMX. Which layout should I use? Use the BTT one because it's probably one I'm least inclined to watch. BEAMX I did look at in the stream last weekend. Yeah, and I think this was just something choppy that I just wasn't overly bothered with looking at in the short term. So it didn't could have made a 3-week supply but demand, but didn't. Hasn't made a weekly either. Although obviously it's starting the week on a downward. It's had a 3-day supply which is wicking through. I mean, it's just in a tight range, BEAMX. So and the next alert. So I've obviously had alert on a daily here that's wicked through. I think that would have been the comment the other day that it's not ideal at the moment, but if it comes back and holds this daily and this ends up as a swing failure of the daily followed by the retest, then great. There's a bit more consolidation than I would have liked before that's happening. So you know, if things have hype, then I generally expect them to move a little bit more quickly, but could be wrong. Yeah, anyway, so just keep an eye on this when it comes back down into the mid 15s, possibly 16 level, to see if it holds for a bottom of the range trade. But it's really just bouncing between, I guess it's got yeah, it's stop hunted these highs as well, so potentially it's going to stop hunting. You know, it's obviously stop hunting these lows now, but it could potentially stop hunt that low and or drop lower. But that's not something I want to long right now. That's BEAMX, and he said blue, but maybe it was a typo and he meant blur. But let me see if blue is something I've never heard of. No, it seems not. No, there's blue spot. Now there is a blue in existence on BitGet, but I'm guessing he doesn't mean that. I'm thinking it's blur. Or bluebird, probably not bluebird either. But let's go with blur. Okay. So I know that the person who's asking me for this tends to be very long biased. Do not long blur. If it's at monthly supply, it's a second hit on monthly supply, so it could run higher, but yeah, looking at that just first glance, I would say do not long that at this point in time, particularly with Bitcoin potentially dropping. So if we see this create a monthly demand and we've got a week for that to happen, then I might change my tune. Could get an early test on this monthly level. Also has made a 3-week. Slightly dubious one because it's offset by 2 candles. 3-day, just running through my time frames like I do. 2-day, okay, so we're on a 2-day demand here. Just thinking. Okay, so blur is not something I want to long in monthly supply. It's a second hit on monthly supply, but at this point it has rejected. So this could be, you know, if you want to scalp this, okay, this could be a long here. Could be. For me, it's a no. But I guess I don't want to know. Okay, so this has come off daily supply as well, yeah. Okay, so I've used this, again, looking at those structural examples that we've already looked at today. So we have possibilities. That's your down. This is the retracement of the downtrend at this point in time. We don't know if this is the ultimate low because we don't have history over here, unless there's something I'm unaware of and that isn't on this chart. But let's assume we don't have prior history on this and that's where it opened. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of people who longed in here when this got listed on exchanges that got screwed. Some of them have managed to get out here. There are still more, and this is obviously just an obvious resistance level overall. At this point in time, while you may get people who will, some of the groups or influencers, you know, might do something like this, you know, with putting an entry here on the 2-day and doing that and going, yes, we're going to break the higher. But anyone who follows me knows I don't make those assumptions because at this point in time we are in supply, so I don't long in supply. That doesn't mean it's not going to break through supply, but we are still at this point retracing a downtrend, and that is still possible. That's one of your possibilities. Then your other possibilities are obviously a higher low, creating a large triangle, macro before this breaks up, depending on where the market's doing. You know, that could be down here, it could be more aggressive up there on this weekly. Obviously I've had that entry probably for a while there on the 2-day at the start of this up move, which hasn't come back to. I was trying a more aggressive one there, which did get a bounce but didn't hold before coming deeper into the weekly. but this is still a possibility. And for me, when you get to this point in time, the probabilities are just not really there. You know, that like I'm biased to short because we are in monthly supply. It's a second hit, so it's a lower probability short than if it were first hit. Like this would have been a better probability short. But again, until it breaks demand, that short isn't confirmed. You know, so here we had a decent short off the high there, off the first hit on the monthly. But it didn't break demand. Same here, you know, we had a decent short there. I guess that was a weekly or something in there. It's come down, but it hasn't broken demand. So you're looking for the confirmation of the downtrend and you're just not getting that yet. This is getting slightly potentially closer. It's had a decent amount of consolidation. But again, we need to see this break, at least the local demand, and then the bigger demand to think this is a strong down move. So would I short this? Possibly not, because of the second hit aspect. But do I want to long this here? Also not. If you start to see the whole market bounce, Bitcoin's going to hold this low at, where are we, 40,300 or so that it's at now. Could hold a higher low here on Bitcoin, then sure, maybe you want to be FOMOing into alts or starting to look at alts. I shouldn't say FOMOing. But yeah. Scalpers, yes, we're in daily demand. If you're looking on the lower time frames and you're looking whether you want to jump into this lower time frames, then what I would start doing is just drawing patterns. You know, you've got a falling wedge, and just, you know, if we do start to see consolidation and then it breaks out of the falling wedge, then you have something to trade on a lower time frame. But short of me looking at all these on the low time frames, which would take me forever, I don't want to be looking for longs into monthly supply. So that's a no on Blur for me. Big Time, haven't looked at this one for a while. Okay, so it gave me some really nice shorts on this. So this is a really nice example again of being able to trade both directions. So, you know, we had a short here, I guess that would have been a daily supply. Then there was a long entry on weekly demand that had a really nice move off it. Then we got a retest short entry on the low time frame. I think that was, maybe it didn't quite hit, but that was, yeah, would have been an alert that went off an 8-hour or 4-hour supply entry, and then it came back. I think, oh yeah, that was it. I think it went, but didn't quite hit. So then I reset it for the same level. And again, like this is something I commented in the video 2 days ago. If you see that rejection and the market's in the right place, you should always say, if you've got a 12 or 8-hour untested supply at the top after the first drop, it's always worth looking for a short on that. You know, you may or may not get the big drop from that, but it virtually always has a reaction. And in this case, then we've got a third entry on another 8-hour supply or 12-hour supply in here. Then I've, you know, obviously tried a long here on, what is that? That would have been maybe a 4-hour demand. So again, worth trying these aggressive entries if the market's still in a good spot. You know, it's bounced for a few hours, but hasn't broken local supply before the bigger drop. But hasn't quite got down to my preferred entry down here. So let's just update this, because so we had, yeah, 2-week demand down the bottom there. Got a weekly flip level here, not something I'd trade. Hasn't made weekly supply at least. Does have a 5-day supply in here, so that I will certainly set a short on. 5-day, anything different on the 4-day? Could have a 4-day rejection here, but not something I want to trade or assume even. This did end up as a 3-day, where the 2 entries were from originally. And then there was also a 3-day that hasn't been tested, made after that. So I'm going to put a short entry here on the 5-day. And then for me, this is just a waiting game, because I want this back down in here before I look for longs again. So there's a 3-day and a 5-day demand down there. There's an aggressive short. So this is something you could potentially aggressively short on the lower time frames to get down here, because I don't think this is going to be, other than we've had this big buyback here, I'm not sure this is a zone that's going to hold, or there's not a zone there to hold. Unfortunately, it's already had the test of the 2-day there, or I would have said that's a possible aggressive short entry. But now it's getting a little bit too close to where this bounce was, even though it's not an area I'd long, it's not an area I'd really short into either. But yeah, keep an eye on this for possible short entries, like if it comes back up to this 12-hour here. So that's a sort of safer short entry. These are more aggressive, riskier short entries, but this for me is short bias until we get down to here, and or potentially lower. Just don't have the history to know if it's going to hold, but we assume the uptrend will hold until proven otherwise. That's big time bonk. It's 10,000 bonk or something on my list, isn't it? Another one I haven't looked at for a little while. Obviously I was looking at it a lot. So this is, yeah, I think I just left it alone after this initial move. It's just kind of like, well, where it might go, anybody knows. So so we've got a sort of a meme-ish 6-month possibility of demand there. 3 months, 2 months, monthly flip level inside all the way down there, just back where the original shorts were. So that's a decent long entry if it gets back down to 69. 2 week, very possibly is going to make a 2-week supply, but it's still got another week to close on that. It's coming through. I can see my alerts just missed there, so that's another slightly annoying one. So yeah, this again is just a no man's landish. For me, we've got an alert set for weekly demand all the way down there, and it's not even really an ideal weekly demand. It's a bit choppy, but wait till it comes down there and see what happens. Up here, didn't have any 5-day, 4-day, so 3-day. So I had an alert set at 3-day. I'm going to delete that one off the top, so that would have been one of those nice aggressive entries that I talk about, but didn't get back to test that. Also had a 3-day in here, which I've got alerted, but hasn't managed to come back up. Projected just below that level, slightly annoyingly. Still in 3-day demand, but the second hit has gone very deep inside, so I don't love that. Making a 2-day, or has made a 2-day supply. Okay, so yeah, I'm leaving the short possibility there. I might bring it down very slightly just in case it rejects on the daily just below that. Structurally, got a drop. We are still in demand, so this is still in an uptrend, but it's looking weak inside the uptrend. I don't know if people are really wanting to buy up at these prices after it's had such a massive move, so that's definitely my preferred area to start looking for longs. And then we do have a lot of chop through here, so I wouldn't be blindly longing this weekly, because I do think this could wick down into lower zone before, but I'll leave the alert there just in case it does, we get the bounce off the top, or just to start watching it at that point. So perspective here, we are still in an uptrend, so we could still get that. It's looking weaker, but unless this breaks here, I don't want to look for a short on the 2-day on this, just in case, you know, money does start flowing back. There will still be a lot of people watching this, and probably a lot of people trapped into those higher levels, people who FOMO'd the top. So we might get some short entries if it comes back to here, even without going lower, but that would be my preference. Other than that, again, I'm just going to assume the overall uptrend is taking precedence, so we could still get that. And then the bigger breakdowns, let's get this ABC. That would be kind of what I'm looking for on this. and could still, so we still, what test did we have up the top here? So we have had every kind of level tested up here, except for this, and even this like really has, it's been very, very close to being tested. So there's no real reason for it to come back up here. But if it does, if it makes a higher low here, great, then I'll assume short there. And this is a possibility for a long entry here, you know, because it is back down at the start of this impulse. So again, you can keep an eye on this for longs, but there's not a strong enough demand in here for me to want to long this, and also the zone has just been run too deeply through. Shorts on that 2-day, so you can start looking for shorts here if you want. That's a possibility. I'm not going to alert it because I don't think it's high enough probability, but I will try and come back and alert that if we break down here first before coming back to retest that. So my view on bonk is it's a possible long as well, so yeah, but not necessarily high probability. For the ones I want to long, I want to see things that have already retraced significantly into these major demands, ideally ones that aren't coming from a monthly or a 3-monthly supply, and even better ones that have broken, so like FET would be a good example of that. I won't look at that now, I'll digress again. But FET, for example, has an annual demand, so you should keep an eye on that on the high time frames for bigger swing longs, and for it maybe being one of the ones that does something different to everything else. Okay, so that's bonk, and then what do we have? LDO, another one I haven't looked at for a long while. Okay, I'm gonna look at this top down because I can't remember it at all. So nothing on the yearly, 6 months, 3 months. Okay. So just it's a little bit overly choppy. So we've had a move up to even almost close to this upper 3-month supply, but it's still fighting with this 3-month supply here. But we've made 3 months demand, we came off it, and we made another 3-month demand and we came off it. So this I'd be more confident from a macro long perspective, but let me just, has it come? Yeah, it has come off. No, wait, I'm wrong, it hasn't quite hit down here. So again, bigger picture, downtrend. Can't draw this on the high time frame with the magnet. Still just retracing a downtrend, but at least has lots of demand to support, possibly moving through higher into this. Excuse me. It's got very close to that upper 3-month level, so it's quite high in this lower 3-month supply now. Quite like that 2-month there for a possible entry. I'm going to go down and look at the lower time frames. Monthly, 3-week. So there's a 3-week demand here as well. So I've had an alert down here for a while. I've also, looks like I've had an alert here on the 3-day, which unfortunately just got missed again. Okay, so I'm going to move this up to here because I think that's worth watching. For a retest there. Again, pros and cons, you know, is this can still be following the downtrend, still making a rising wedge. Okay, so let's look more this. So this is your downtrend, that's your last down move, and again we're testing the supply that caused this big downtrend. However, we have now tested it 1, 2, 3 times, and we're still getting higher each time. So this is just tradable no matter which direction it goes. If we come down to here, then you can look for a next up move. If this breaks down, if it doesn't hold, or if you don't see any strength coming off this level, then start looking for the possibility of breaking and that, and all that. But again, so the macro picture remains down on this, but it's starting to look maybe more promising for potentially getting through supply. And I feel like this has a lot of hype for some reason. I have no idea about fundamentals, as you know, but there is possibility that this is gonna be hyped by people as it hits demand, and it is still making higher highs. We've had 2 significant waves here, so we could still get a 3rd wave, at least even up into this 3-day up the top here. So let me see if there's anything. Okay, so yeah, we're looking like we're going to come through this 3-day, or at least deeper inside, but I just think unfortunately it's going to need probably more time, and I'm hopefully not as much as these. So obviously this had August to January, 6 months of down, and then February to September, so almost like 8 or 9 months of down. So hopefully we don't get 8 or 9 months of consolidation on this, which then takes us all the way back down to, you know, the start of this last move. Like the first one went, let's have a look at the fibs on these actually, because maybe it's forming a nice sort of pattern. So that's comes to 61.8 on the log, deeper on the linear obviously. This one also to 61.8 on the log scale. Like I say, assuming this is the top, it doesn't necessarily have to be the top right now, but this one, if that's the top, could see it coming quite deep into that 3-week to be getting to the 61, but yeah, we can just keep an eye on it from there. But then yeah, don't discount it if it does go deeper and closer to the 61 fib. Particularly also because we've got this 3-day untested down here. So it's something that could come a bit deeper, but we'll have a watch from when the alert goes. That's a possibility of a short up if it goes back up to 3.3, so you can have a watch of that level if you want. I'm not going to, just for the reasons I've just stated, you know, 3 hits on the 3 monthly supply and the fact that we've got 3 monthly demand here. Oh yeah, so the alert certainly is worth putting there because also we have the 3 month demand. But yeah, just be conscious that we could also come down to this 2 month level. I'm going to put a note in there so I remember. Also watch 2 month level. Oh my gosh, typing fail at 61 fib, around $2. Why can't I type today? So yeah, if it comes deeper and more aggressively here, 3 months demand. I should also put that in alert. 3 week and 3 month demand. And also that confuses people sometimes when I drag the alerts and it doesn't change the text. So yeah, that's the initial area to keep an eye on for LDO. TRB, so we've got 3 or 4 left on the list. For anyone who's watching. TRB, I think this might have been, so yes, this is one of the ones also that made an annual demand, but unfortunately has quite a long way. So we've got an annual demand that's all the way down here, the grey zone there, like from 33. There's an annual level that it may flip a bit higher at like 57. 6 months, 3 months, so there's a 3 month all the way down the bottom here, which obviously didn't get tested at the time because TRB went crazy for whatever reason. Fundamentals, I don't know, or just crypto. So we've got a test here, so I have had a previous alert that's hit here on the monthly, so that's still something that should be watched. And we've got a 3 week inside that. So yeah, I'd be watching this for longs from anywhere from now down to here, the bigger picture longs, but again, it's probably going to take a lot more time. Is it the top overall? Possibly. You know, maybe it's just had enough now. It has broken out of all-time high. It did have that ridiculous drop. Let me see if we've got anything new in the way of supply. It had the crazy drop on, I think it was like a sort of a 1 day or few hour thing, wasn't it? So that would have taken a little bit of patience on this one. Like I said, the alert went and it did have a decent, well, it had a decent reaction straight up to, but it straight up to and rejecting the previous all-time high. So that's one thing I don't love on that. But given we have monthly demand, weekly demand, I still think it's worth watching. So, you know, again, once and if this breaks, then we'll certainly look for macro shorts on this. But as it stands, not the best daily supply, but I'll put that in there. And we also got a daily demand here. So again, like, it's just not, like, again, maybe it's just gone off the boil. Monthly demand had decent hit and held, but then it took a long time to actually have any follow-up, and it had 3 days of follow-up at the start of last week, but then has retraced the whole thing. So needs more time, and we need to see if this is going to give any sort of pattern that's going to start looking for more significant long entries. I don't like that double rejection off all-time high there. So I will actually see what short possibilities we've got in here. So we've got a little 12-hour right there. And we've also got a local 12-hour. 8-hour. Okay. Whoa. So yeah, that's a huge. It's a 4-hour back down to the 4-hour chart. That was a huge drop. I can imagine some people got heavily screwed over on that drop. Just going to put these in case we come back up here. That would be a very nice short if it comes back up to 403, and even the 4-hour. But I actually imagine it's probably not going to come back up there, unless we are later. Yeah. So I guess the question is are we in a bull market? And you know, back to the the others chart and the comments I've made on this previously. There is a chance this is topping out here because there's a lot of other confidence across the rest of the market, but also if it does hold, there is a possibility that we see more bull run while the others and total 3 charts get up to the same zones that the total chart and Bitcoin have got up to. But again, just need a little bit more time to see if that's going to play out here. At the moment, it's not showing signs of playing out, but I think we'll know in the next couple of days, because if all start to die off further this week, then we're going to start to see significant supply put in. And people might FOMO back into this, that's the only thing. I'm going to put an alert on the 4-hour supply just to watch, and then a comment, because I do think this could be a very nice short. If it gets some pushing back up for anybody who's trapped in there. 2-hour inside, huge zone, wait for proper confirmation. So again, on this, as I said, this is still in an uptrend, still waiting for significant demand to break before this to be a confirmed short. Back in demand now, so can look for long entries. It's not showing the signs that you'd really want off the first hit on this monthly. Chances of going deeper in the monthly are now higher. There's a daily down there and then the weekly at the bottom. Fib wise, I mean, it's a crazy wick anyway. We're at the 78 fib, 88 fib on linear. Such a different bias if you look at it from a linear versus log perspective. And yeah, no, so this is a fairly good example as well. So you can see back here, you know, we've had similar move with a massive drop, but this also dropped, tried a few times, and then came straight back through all that demand. So there is no reason why this isn't necessarily going to drop all the way back down to this annual level. So I'm going to look at, let me just look at the fibs on that. So fib from this up move back in 2021 came back down to the 88 on the linear scale and the 70 on the log scale. So if this move was to retrace in its entirety, which is highly possible, we'd be looking around here. The annual zone would be really quite nice actually, so I'm going to move this, whatever alert, there's not actually a set alert there, but that would be the 61 to 70 area, and it's a lot deeper than the 88, but got that confluence. Oh. Do not reset all my charts. No, we're safe. Trading views being difficult lately. I'm going to leave that unalerted at the moment just so I don't waste an alert, because obviously there's that first. But yeah, so bigger picture, TRB would want somewhere down here, 61 fib. And again, obviously note that, you know, while this came down to the 70 fib and then had a bounce, it obviously then significantly, eventually broke down after that. The bounce also went back up to the 70, so this is something that likes to respect the 70 fibs, at least on the log scale, so even this may go deeper down into the demand here. Then from the perspective of if we bounce, let's say we bounce on the 70 fib here, could go back up to 70, 78 fib. If we bounce now, okay. 61 fibs back up there. If we bounce at this weekly down here, so again, you just need to see where the bounce is to see whether this is a decent short, as and when. But yeah, keep an eye on it because it is in a monthly demand. So let me just have a look at the monthly, actually back from 2021 as well. Gosh, this is annoying. So yeah, so back in 2021, you know, the wicks, they actually didn't quite test the monthly down here, but it came down very, very close to the monthly. So this is just a very different structure here. So to think it's doing the same thing is slightly presumptuous. It also had a 3-week here, and it did have a final push, and then again tried a few times. Okay, I've got things happening now, so I'm going to need to hurry this up and sign off soon. Anyway, just looking at the immediate demands on TRB to start off with, but certainly potential now for a much more significant drop on TRB, and hence why I want to potentially look at shorts if we come up here, because that would be a really nice entry, and or like if this starts making weekly or 3-day supply in the interim, I'll certainly look for a short entry on that. What else? Where are we? TRB Sol. Wrong layout. Sol. Connect. Okay, yeah, so slightly frustratingly with these, so I had all these that I updated last week, all the new majors, all the old majors, and nothing hit. I think Ada got very, very close. That was probably one of the more aggressive ones. I got very, very close to the alert at the 2-day there, but no, rejected to slightly below on the 3-day. Matic, I think, yeah, like I said, was one of the ones I left alone because it's got 6 monthly demand. Let me just turn the volume off on my phone because my friend is spamming me. So then DOT, similarly, I had a 2-day up there, hasn't even come close. Atom did come close, but again, wouldn't even have hit the 2-day if I'd done it there, but also I left that alone because of the 6-month demand. NEAR is just rejected off the 4-hour immediate now, so these are much, much weaker. Sol was a little bit surprising to me, actually, because, so like in the last update, I said I'd had this entry here on the 5-day supply, but I actually thought it might come up higher and take more of the stops inside, but then I was saying watch this trend line for the trend line break, which we'd got very, very quickly and neatly. But then now we've also got this lower trend line here, which we had tried to cling onto, but are now potentially running through here. I reset the alert for this 5-day in case we came back up for a retest, because that also confirmed into a daily. There's no new weekly on this 5-day, 4-day. So we're potentially going to create a 4-day there, but we've got another 2 days for that to happen. It's also a 3-day at the same level, and it is confirmed. So again, that might be it for Sol. Unless it clings to this trend line. So yeah, we had a 12-hour in there that was rejected, and then we had this 12-hour and 3-day that's also already been rejected. But again, so I'm not going to short this all the way down here because that's not the way I roll. We'd still like to see it if it comes back up here. I would have preferred it to come back up sooner. But yeah, that alert remains set for there. But be conscious again, this is bigger 5-day zone, and we could get that wick into there, taking some of these stops, particularly above the 108 level, 108.3. So you're potentially looking for a stop hunt up here, but the alert will go lower. And then I want this down here. There's no way I'm going to be looking for longs on this until it gets back down into weekly demand. I think that I can't remember now, but I think the Sol BTC pair supported that as well. So yeah, that's Sol. XVS, which we've looked at a few times in the premium group actually, because Matt's into it. Let's see. So 3 months demand down here, 3 months supply up here, so that's kind of where I'd be wanting to look for shorts, and I'm hoping it's heading in that direction. We're in a 2-month, 1 month supply at the moment, but just pushing obviously very high into that and have had multiple hits. So, and plus at the lows coming off a bigger 6-month demand. So I like this for a bigger move, but obviously we just need some sort of a retracement, or if we want a decent entry, then we need some sort of a retracement. So we haven't managed to get back down to this monthly or 3 monthly down here yet, but that's where one of the zones I'd look at. And then there's a 2-week here, which I think I had the alert set, but it previously, and I've left it there, but also it just slightly missed that previously. So there's a 2-week and then a 1-week in there, so those would be my preferred entries. Then we were looking much lower time frame in the group, because obviously we've still got a weekly demand here. It held, bounced, made another weekly demand, but a weaker one. Again, due to not having closed above, which has also held. 5-day, 4-day, 3-day, so it's just in this really tight range. Just about made a 2-day demand there actually, but it's still a little bit like BEAMX on this actually, that it's holding but struggling to get over a particular level. So in this case, it's this 12-hour supply up here at 12.5. It's kind of struggling to get through that. So while it's making, so it's made a 2-day demand by a hair. It's now drifted back down again with Bitcoin, which has bounced yet again. Bitcoin would just dump and be done with it. It's becoming a little bit perilous here on the trend line. So yeah, when we looked at it, it was around here, I think, and I was saying to Matt that I wanted a wick down into this weekly demand because at that point it hadn't quite been tested. So we got that on the Bitcoin drop on the 18th. And then it did bounce really nicely, but again, hasn't managed to get back through this supply. And it's really becoming a bit precarious on the trend line. But I mean, like obviously if those who are in this after that initial wick, certainly hold on and see, but it's just going to be a timing thing on this, and hopefully it can just hold on long enough for the whole market to be ready to do a bit of a rebound. But at least it's quite an easy invalidation, like, you know, you want those wicks to hold and or even, you know, this daily zone. So you can put your long stops either underneath the daily down here or even underneath those wicks if you want to be a bit more aggressive, but certainly keep an eye on this because I do like how it's holding. And you know, it's got multiple hits on supply and multiple hits on demand, so it's just, but it's a very small range. But either way it breaks from the range, you can short or long accordingly. I can't really put an alert on this locally because you need to be watching. I could potentially put, actually I might put an alert here for a breakout. So possible, why am I completely incapable of typing today? possibly the alcohol from yesterday. Possible breakout trade. There. So I'm going to put an alert there for potentially adding and or looking at structure, because by then you actually hopefully it would have formed a bit more of an uptrend if it's going to hold that. I don't really want to put an alert on this trend line because, you know, if it breaks here, Phil did this to me, I think if it breaks here then it's just going to fall back into the weekly demand. So I don't really want to be shorting that until I see the supply. But I might put an alert down here actually. No, I was going to say for a possible breakdown trade, breakout and breakdown. But yeah, there's too much demand in here for me to make me want to sort of short a breakdown or breakout on the downside. But yeah, still worth watching that one because that could suddenly run. Let me see what volume is doing. Yeah, it's very low volume, but you know, there's signs of no buying, more selling. But yeah, keep an eye on that one. And last but not least, Doge or Doggy Coin, as I like to call it. So this was an interesting one actually. Did I have it? Okay, so yeah, I've got it charted on the US dollar pair as well as the perpetual pair because we had more history from to the downside. So on this we do have a 6-month demand. So this was one of the few that I'm more bullish on. So I've got a 6-month in there. Sorry, excuse me. The 6-month is lower, the 6-month is down here, and that's what I'd have alerted, I think, to the downside. So I was thinking it's hit the 6-month already, but no, so that's a 3-month, the one that I just drew in there. So we've got the 3-month level that it has tested already. Don't know what I'm doing at the moment. So it's certainly interesting to watch. Obviously, I tend to be quite biased short on Doggy Coin because it's fun to short, particularly when everybody's FOMOing into it. So I had a short entry there, and then I think I wasn't really looking at the highs because, again, we're just forming this range and so many things are breaking out. I would have looked at a retest at this monthly level up here, but we haven't made it back up there. And this has been one of the weaker ones across the market with the whole run that we've had. So alert set down here for 6-month demand. If we come there, obviously had a more aggressive alert in here for weekly demand. Nothing on the lower time frames on this, so this is not really something I particularly want to short at this point in time. This is something that you could look at longs. So again, preferred entry if we get a bigger drop is this 6 months, so definitely keep an eye on that level. I think I put in the comment there is also this 3-week untested inside it, so again, don't be disheartened if it comes through the 6 month because it could come through significantly. There's a 3-week there and there's a 3-day right at the bottom. And this isn't necessarily a strongest 6 month because we've only closed a wick over the previous high, but it is 6-month demand, and therefore I would definitely be looking for longs in that, even if it goes really deep inside. Short term, we have had a bounce off the weekly and 3-day. It's very wicky and nasty, but we've got a new 3-day demand in there, and we've got a new 3-day supply up here, but that already got tested. So had the rejection and alert up here for the 3-day supply at the top, coming back down to 3-day demand in here. So a decent move up here, has rejected off a 2-day there. Again, nice example of just bouncing from supply to demand to supply to demand. The low here has come in just above the 2-day and 3-day levels there. And I do think that's a strong enough move to make this worth watching for an immediate long and not necessarily waiting for the bigger drop. It's definitely got some buying interest going on, and then we've had that bigger move. May not be ready, and I know, I'm highly skeptical that we've had so much on the market recently. Let me just fib this as well. There's going to need some, even if these are things that are going to hold on the new 6 month, 3 month demands, I just feel like we might need much more consolidation time. So yeah, the fibs on this are obviously lower as well. So the bigger picture trade is ideally from lower, but on the off chance that it's going to go sooner, I'm going to just set an alert just below, just at the bottom of this wick. So if we drift back down there again, I might watch it later in the next day or two. There's an 8 hour, 4 hour demand here, so we could still drift further down in the zone. And hold on, let me just check that 3 month level again. So yeah, it's obviously come deeper into the 3 month. Yeah, it's possible we retrace a lot more of this, but I'll keep the alert slightly more aggressive just to watch it potentially later in the day. 3 day demand on top of weekly, and assuming 3 month level test holds, 6 month alerted below drop. But yeah, that's worth, I've set the alert for lower. I mean, this may already have had the bounce. So yeah, keep an eye on this, definitely. Quite like that. Possibility, again, assuming the whole market's not going to crash on me. Yeah, so that's Doge. That's the last one on the list. I don't think anybody else has asked for anything else. Let me just double check Telegram. No. Oh yeah, and the LTC alert that just came in while I've been charting. I'll just have a quick look at that one because I haven't. Whoa. So big drops on. Why are all my alerts showing again? Big drops on all the old majors, and LTC's come quite heavily into that now. So it was a little bit of a risky one there. Oh no, yeah. Decent sized drops on these alts, that's for sure. So again, didn't come up to my zones of interest quite. BCH came close but didn't quite make it. I think Litecoin just didn't like much, but I thought it was worth having a long entry on that daily. I don't love it because it's the 2 week supply. And Ripple had a really nice bounce off the alert that I talked about in the previous update, but now is obviously retracing a lot of it. And again, couldn't get significantly past local supply, just taking out the stops and not up to. So I'm gonna have to update all these. I'll try and maybe I'll post the charts later probably rather than doing a whole other update on them, because then I just end up covering the same ground. But yeah, so Litecoin would have been more of a scalp entry than anything else on this. So 2 week supply, don't love longing into 2 week supply. But I think it was a second hit, so we'd already had, I think that move came, the bigger wick was before it was confirmed. So it was on the weekly basis. And then this is the second hit is on the 2 weekly. So it's hard to know. Let me just see. Oh yeah. So and also we have a 5 day here as well. Just something I thought was worth watching. And again, I think we had a bigger. The other reason was we had a bigger pickup on the grayscale chart, which has fallen quite a lot. But the grayscale LTCN fell a lot. But then I think it had a 16% bounce or something that I saw. So I thought it was worth looking for possible longs on this if Litecoin's going to be weird. Because Litecoin, I'm really, like I said, I didn't really want to trade it in the last update because it's in 2 month demand, but has had so many hits off it, and all the hits really haven't got very high. It hasn't gone anywhere near the 2 month supply. So despite the massive moves that we've had on grayscale, Litecoin itself has really done very little. But yeah, so this was a bit of a risky daily demand with the market moving slowly. I was hoping, I guess, this would hit on the weekend and get a bigger move. But anyway, yeah, you can watch that for possible longs, but just be aware that it's come off 2 week supply, so this is not necessarily a high probability entry, but could give a scalp for you. And yeah, so that's it. Hope that's helpful. Any questions, ask me in the channel.